Welcome to the tutorial where we will go through the basics to create a custom class and subclass within the toolkit. Let's not waste any time and make a start. When you have started the toolkit, these are the screens you will see. In order to create your own mod, please click on the Create button. After that, you can set a name for your mod in the bottom right corner. For this tutorial, we will name it class_tutorial. Now, the toolkit is loading your mod. In this window, it's asking you what level you would like to load. The level is where you can test parts of your mod. I always use the basic level A, it's just an empty plane with a random spawned origin character. But we will explain more about this once we have reached the part of testing. If you cannot see the basic level A, just type basic in the top search bar and it will come up. Double-click to open it. Now, you can see the basic level with the spawn points and one origin character. In the top bar is where you can find the different tools that are used to create your mod. In order to create your custom class, we will be using the UUID object editor and the stats editor located next to it. But we begin with the UUID editor. Click on the icon in order to open it. In the left panel, you will see all the project folders available to you. At the bottom, you will find the folder of your mod. In the case, it's the class tutorial folder. Click on the arrow next to it to expand the folder. Now, you are about 1.5 minutes into the tutorial, and you are being swarmed with new terms, screens, and now you are facing hundreds of new folders. You most likely are thinking, what did I get myself into? Do not worry, we will explain the folders that are relevant to this tutorial, and also explain the structure and relationship between them. All the other folders you can completely ignore for now. Step by step, you will build your knowledge on this toolkit. So to create a custom class or subclass, there are 3 folders that you will use the most for the basics. These are the class description folder and table, the progressions folder and table, and the list folder. The class descriptions table is where, as the name already states, sort of describe your class. This is the first step where you will bring your customs class or subclass to life. Within this table, you will give the custom class a name, create a description, link the progression table, primary ability, spellcasting ability, learning strategy, tags, spell settings, HP, hotbar settings, and link the spell lists. The progression table is where you set up the class, its progression through the levels, such as adding passives, spell slots, additional spells, skills, etc. The list folder is where you create lists, where can capture the individual spells, abilities, skills, passives, etc. So, let's start by creating these within your mod folder. Go to the class descriptions folder and click on the plus symbol to the right of it. Then select class descriptions. Now click on the arrow to the left of it and open the class descriptions table that you just created by double-clicking on it. Here you now see all the columns where you can link the items we just described. Don't worry, we will go through all the relevant columns in detail later. Now go to the progressions folder, click on the plus symbol to the right of it, then select progressions. Now click on the arrow to the left of it and open the progressions table that you just created by double-clicking on it. Again, we will talk about these columns in detail later. Now go to the list folder, click on the plus symbol to the right of it. Here you can see all the different list tables you can make. In this tutorial, we will use the Druid class as main example, so for now, just create the spell list table. Again, click on the arrow to the left of it and open spell list table. You can find all the open tables at the top, so now you can easily switch between them. So in order to understand how to fill all the correct columns with the correct data, I find the easiest way to learn is to reverse engineer the data already available from the main game. So if you go back to the left where you can see all the projects and scroll up, you will find the shared project folder at the top. All these folders contain parts of the game. The 2 folders you will find most data in is in the shared and shared dev folder. But also the other folders will contain data you might need depending on what you want to make. For now, just open the shared folder and scroll back to the top. We will now open the class description table so we can see how the populated table looks like. Here you can now see some of the classes and subclasses from the main game. As we said before, we will use the Druid class as our main example for this tutorial, so please find the line of the Druid class and circle of the land subclass. We will go through these in order to see what we need for our own class. In order to make it clearer and less busy on the eyes, we will copy both these lines into our own class description table. Also, you can only edit the data within your own mod project and tables. In order to copy the two rows, you click on the number of the row, in this case 11, and hold Shift while clicking on row 12. Now right-click and select Copy. Go to your own class description table on the top, and right-click and select Paste. Now, we will go through the different columns and what they are for. The UUID column is a unique code that you can use to revert to this particular line. By copying these lines, the UUID is regenerated. You can check this by going back to the class description table from the shared project and compare the UUID codes. Also, while copying multiple lines together, it can happen that they are set in a different order. I always try to work clean, so I want the main class to be above the subclass. You can do this to use left mouse click and hold on the number of the row you want to move, in the case number 2, and drag it to where you want it. If you ever want to regenerate the UUID number by yourself, you can press the right mouse button on the UUID field and select Regenerate Value at the bottom. The parent UUID column is used for the subclasses to refer to the main class. The name speaks for itself, but know that this is not the name that is seen in the game itself. That is the next column called the display name. The description column is also seen in-game, and here you can describe what your class or subclass is. The progression table UUID is where we tell what this class or subclass will get with each level. More about this in the progressions table, as that is where we set it up. I do not know what the sounds class type exactly does. Just select the class that's closest to what you are making. The next two columns are used to set the primary ability and spellcasting ability for your class or subclass. In the learning strategy, select the value All Children. In the next two columns, you can state if your class had to prepare spells and if they can learn them, like the wizard class can. The tags are what I believe will open certain dialogue options, so again select the value that is the closest for your customs class, or leave it empty. The class equipment row will determine the starting equipment of your class. Later in this tutorial, we will show you where you can find the details of this and how to adjust it if you would like. Character creation pose, just copy the value as is. Base HP is your starting health, and the HP per level is the value that your HP increases with each level up. Leave the column AA at 1, and in the last column they add the scroll spell list for the class. I'm not exactly sure if these are only all the spells the class can choose from at the beginning, as we will add the spell list per level later in the Progressions tab. So back to the progression table, UUID. This value is coming from the Progressions table, so let's now start by checking how that table works. We will use the same strategy as we have done for the class description table. We will look at the existing Progressions table from the shared project folder. So go to the left panel, open to Progressions folder by clicking on the arrow to the left of it, and then double-click on the Progressions table to open it up. Now you can see how certain classes and subclasses of the main game progress through the levels. Again, we are looking for the Druid and the Circle of the Land subclass. Here we see the progression of level 1 till level 5. Select all the lines and copy them. One of the questions you might have is, hey, but in the game it goes to level 12. So what about all the other levels? Remember when we said that all data is spread out over the different project folders? That is what is happening here. You can find all the other levels for the Druid within the shared dev project folder, as shown here. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we will only copy the lines till level 5. Therefore, let's go back to the progressions table of our own mod and paste the rows in there. So again, we have a UUID table, all with unique UUID codes for that specific row. But next to it, we have a column called Table UUID. The table UUID is also a unique UUID code, but not one that is automatically regenerated when copied, and its code can apply to multiple rows. That is because the table UUID links all the different UUID of the class progression into one code, and that is why we link the table UUID in the class description table. Now, the game knows how your class will progress. Now, we still have one problem, and that is that the current table UID is still the same as in the shared project folder where we copied it from. The easiest way to update it is to copy the UUID code from column A and paste it in column B for all the lines we want to tie together. Then press the right mouse button on the UUID we just used from column A and press Regenerate Value. Now that we have manually regenerated the table UUID, we have to link the new table UUID in the correct class description line. So we copy the table UUID and go back to our mod class description. Then paste the new value in the correct line for the class. So the first line is for the Druid main class, and the second line is for the Circle of Land subclass. We also know this as we always move the lines into the correct order after copying them. Now we go back to our progressions table. Again, we see that during the copying process, the columns are in another order. Therefore, I move row 2 back to row 1. Within the subclass column, you can add the names as shown in column D, and if you add multiple values, you have to separate them with the semicolon symbol. Column E shows at what level this row will be put in effect. The progression type, column F, is set to 0 for a main class and set to 1 for a subclass. In column G, we can add what passives have to be added. Like in this example, it unlocks an additional spell slot of level 1. We are not talking about passive skills. Those are added through the passive lists in column K. In column H, you can remove passives. In column II, you can add boosts, such as setting the quantity of spell slots the class has to what saving throws the proficiency bonus is applied to, and in what armor or weapons the class is proficient with, etc. Column J, if the value is set to yes, it will allow for a feat to be selected. Column K is where you would add the spell, skill, or passive list they have access to at that level. Column L is set to yes if you want this line to apply when someone multi-classes into your class. Therefore, all classes have a separate level 1 line, with this column set to yes. As when multi-classing into another class, you do not get exactly the same benefits as when starting out at level 1 with that class. Before we go to the list table, I want to explain the search function within the toolkit. In order to bring up the search bar, press Ctrl plus F. It will either pop up at the left or bottom depending on where you are. Now it pops up at the left panel. You have two options. The default is always the local search. This means it will search on the keyword you enter within the current active table. Let's demonstrate that by searching on the word Druid and then press Enter. The results will show under the search bar. Here you now see the UUID of the line where the keyword is in, the column, the project folder, table name, and the value of the field. Also, the fields in the table with the keyword are now highlighted green. For the second search option, if you now click once on the local search, it will change into a global search. This means it will search within all project folders, as you can see in the results below. This is a very useful tool when you want to understand something but don't know where it's located. Let's close the search bar and move on to the spell list table. So in the top we have our own mod spell list table, but it's empty. So again, let's take a look at the already existing table. Go to the list folder within the shared project and double-click to open the spell list table. Again, we will search for the Druid spell lists. You can see them here on row 57 till row 60. Let's copy the cantrip spell list, row 57, by using the Ctrl+C shortcut this time, and copy it in our own spell list table with Ctrl+V. Be aware that if we paste with the shortcut that we cannot have the UUID field as the active field, otherwise it will not paste the row. So select the name field and press Ctrl+V. So we now have the UUID column with a automatically regenerated UUID code, the name of the spell list, in this case Druid cantrips, and the spells column that lists all the spells, in this case cantrips, available to this list. Let's see how the cantrip list is added to the progression table. In the first row of column K, we know that the cantrips are added, but how do you see that within the code itself? You use a command, For this specific case, it would be the select spells command with then the UUID for the spell list you would like to add. It's the one ending in 182A. The 2 after the comma is the amount of cantrips you can select, and the always prepared makes it so you don't have to prepare the spells in the game. You can confirm this by going to the spell list table from the shared project folder. Just be aware that if you want to use your own spell list instead of the existing one, you will have to replace the UUID in the code with the UUID of your list. Now you are probably very curious where you can find the individual spells. All spells are divided in different categories, as you can see in this list. You have the target, projectile, and shout spells. The category is in front of the spell name with an underscore in between. But where are they located? As you might be able to remember, in the beginning of the tutorial, we stated we would use 2 tools for the basics. The UUID object editor, that is the tool we currently use, and the stats editor. As you probably have guessed by now, the spell are located within the stats editor. But before we go there is one basic thing I haven't explained yet. Even though it's pretty important as the toolkit is known to crash, everything we have done till now within our own mod folder has not yet been saved. So if it crashes, we lose everything. In order to save, you can go to the save icon in the top left of the table. But this will only save this table. You can go to File in the top left of the screen and click Resave All in order to save all the tables you have made adjustments in. You get a pop-up per table to confirm if you want to save. So, let's go and search for the spells within the stats editor. Let's go back to the main view of the toolkit. Now, let's go to the stats editor and open it. This view shouldn't be that intimidating again, as when you open the UUID object editor tool for the first time. Now let's open the shared project folder. Go to spell data and open it by clicking on the arrow to the left of it. Now you can see all the different spell categories and its corresponding table. Let's just quickly open one by double-clicking on the table and see how it looks like. As you can see, not only spells are listed here, as also skills can share the same category. We will not go into detail on these tables, as I will cover how to create custom spells in a other tutorial. But if you want to make adjustments, just know that you can only do that in your own project folder. So create the corresponding table within there, and copy the existing spell in there and start messing around with it. After all, that is also a good way to learn. For now, let's close the stats editor again. We now have went through all the basics on how to create your own class or subclass and how it is structured within the toolkit, but we haven't actually made any changes that we can test out. So in order to demonstrate how to test your mod within the toolkit and teach you some basic items on that subject, let's make some very simple tweaks to the lines we have copied. Go back to the UUID object editor. Go to your own progressions table and let's do those minor tweaks. Let's change the name of the main class. Let's name it Tutorial. Now let's change the name of the subclass as well. It will be Tutorial Subclass. All very original names, I know. In order to have this reflected, we also have to change the name on the second row of column C to the name we just created. But as you can see, we do not find our subclass. That is because it is pulling that information from the class description table. So let's leave that empty for now. Now let's go to our own class description table. Change the name and display name for both the class and subclass, and don't forget to update the parent UUID in row 2, column B. But we can only do that after we have saved the changes in this table. Remember, we already updated the progression table UUID within here, so we don't have to do that anymore. Let's save these minor changes and let's start with testing to see if this worked. In order to start testing within the toolkit, you can press on the top left icon under File. This will activate the level you have loaded in the beginning. In our case, Basic Level A. Now, in order to activate the window, click once with your left mouse button somewhere in the level. You will notice that the origin character will move to that location. In order to see if our custom class is available, we have to either create a new character or respect the current origin character. To do that, we have to bring up the console window. You can do that by holding Ctrl plus Shift plus F11. Within the console window, type CC. Now you will see 2 options, and the right. to either create a new character or respect your current one. For now, let's create a new character. Double-click on CC Start New and press Enter. You can close the console window for now. If you now go to the class section and you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will find your custom class without an icon. So, mission success. Now select the required contrips and abilities marked with the red exclamation mark. You will notice that at the abilities field, you cannot select the +2 and +1 ability improvement. We will explain this later. For now, just press on the proceed button until you have created the new character. So now we have a new level 1 character with our custom class. But when we are testing, we would like to test more than just a level 1 character. So how do we level a character? Again, within the console window. So press Ctrl plus Shift plus F11 and type level. You will now see the command level up at the right. Double-click on it and type in the amount of levels you want your party to level up. For now, let's just type 1. This will make our party members increase their level by 1, so in our case to level 2. As you can see by pressing on the level up button, as you would do in-game. Although we have our main class working, we do not have our subclass working. So let's fix that. Remember that if you are in game mode to test, you have to go out of game mode in order to make any adjustments to your tables or files. So just click again on the icon on the top left to leave game mode. Go back to the UUID object editor and go to your progressions table. As we have made all the adjustments and saved it, we now are able to select a sub-EL cast within column C. Let's do that for row 3 so that when we become level 3 in our custom class, we get the option to select our custom subclass. Let's save our table again and go back to the level and activate game mode. Open the console window, level up our character one more level. And there it is, our own custom subclass. We get a black screen, just go out of game mode and this will fix it. Now it might be that during the process your changes are not reflected during testing. That could be because something has been set up wrong, but it's also likely that the toolkit doesn't show them. You can test that by either reloading the level and see if that fixes the issue, or completely restart your toolkit. Sometimes this will help to resolve any issues you might have. Just keep that in mind while working on your mod. Now remember that when selecting our custom class, we were unable to select the +1 and +2 ability modifiers. We can fix that by going back to our UUID object editor, going to our project folder, progressions folder, and then opening the progressions tab. Then go to column K, and at the end we place a semicolon as that is needed when putting another value in the cell. After the semicolon, we directly place the code SelectAbilityBonus as highlighted here. I will add this to the description so you can easily copy-paste the code. Now, make sure you save the table. That brings this tutorial on how to create your own custom class and subclass to an end. You now should understand the basic setup of a class within the toolkit. There is still way more to learn, but remember that with this knowledge, you are now able to play around within the toolkit and start testing things out. Because by trial and error, you will gain a great understanding on how everything works and is set up. I hope I was able to help you get started on your mod journey, and I wish you a great day.